Welcome to the first Vincent Community Board meeting for 2024, which is very exciting. First up, I have got no apologies received this morning, and we can kick straight into the public forum. Welcome David, Rory and Linda to talk about the Riverside Park development. Thank you. Yeah.
So for the progress update, we've been working with iwi to come up with a final design, and we had costings that were done and nailed down to what the wish list would be to have on it. Those costings came back a little more than what we had planned. So we are really need to just get this project going, and we just need to, in a way, have a staged process to get it going, and for people to see something for all the talk for the last 10 or 11, 12 years on it. So we've scaled it back and come up with a proposal that has given us everything that we need to show everybody that it's well on the way. Public toilets, the focus on the river and getting the entranceway to the river on the way, and then we can build on that as a two-stage process, but in no way is it dumbed down or anything. It's just that there are elements in there that we see aren't necessity at this stage, but we can get everything we want and get the access to the river sorted now, get the public toilets in place, and we'll come back with these costings and just need to make sure that we can make everything work within it.
I'll just add one little bit, which is really just reinforcing what Rory's just said. Again, the project Rory came up with a vision 10, 12 years ago, and I think the trust has picked that up and run with that and created an objective, which I think is being largely delivered by phase one. I think that's really important to realise. Even though it's been scaled back and put into phases all around affordability, when you actually look at what phase one will deliver, it is almost the entire objective that was originally set out. It was about opening Alexandra to the river, taking the trees at the end of Tower Street, bringing the river and the town together, and that has been achieved by phase one. It is creating the opportunity for building a hub at the top where the community can get together, with visitors can get together, cycling can be hubbed, etc. That comes from phase one as well. What it doesn't do is probably have the materials that we as a community would like to see on the surfaces, paving rather than shingle, things like that. So it's not the end picture, but it's actually well on the way, and it is going to deliver, I think, to the original objective. I think that's really key in understanding what is coming through at the moment. And there will be a phase two and a phase three. There'll be different funding. You know, as time goes on, the opportunity to be there. But I think there's no regret by actually just delivering what phase one does. That's really what I'll say.
Mm-hmm. And I think as a trust, we are just so keen to get some grassroots evidence that this is actually happening. There should be so much talk about it. And I think we believe that once that happens, it's going to bring the community along with us, and it's going to, you know, it's going to feed on itself and will lead into the next phases of the project. That's our hope.
One of the things that I noted in the document that's coming to us next is that a couple of things that might reduce a little bit in the meantime are things like trees and benches. Would there be the opportunity for people in the community to donate that sort of thing?
Yeah, we've already received one large donation and looking for somewhere to put it of relevance. It was the Verdon Family Trust donated $20,000 to it. We've gone and spoke to several groups, community groups, probably nearly three times some of them, lots of Rotary and those ones, really keen to help out where they can. So it's just one of those things, we need to build it and they will come.
Yeah.
There's-
So potentially there'd be an ad in the paper saying if individual families wanted to donate $500 for a tree or whatever it be, that may come down to.
Yeah, I think we'll have to work out a sort of a coordinated approach on how we go about that, and that might be something that we can work out with the council on how we best to do that and enlist that support in kind.
Yeah.
No, that's right.
The other thing I wondered, the changing, and I'm not sure if it's for you guys or potentially for the team, changing from a universally accessible path to an accessible path. How easy would that be to change it back in the future to make it universally accessible, or would it just stay accessible?
Really about surface, the materials.
Yeah.
So as I understand the way the team have put it together, gradients do meet the requirements.
Yeah.
It's just the materials that are on the base property don't.
Yeah,
Right.
that's correct. Yes.
Because I saw the pathway had reduced in size.
Yeah,
Is that going to pose a problem? Like if it's just going to be gravelled in the meantime until it can, how much of a difference does it make?
it's doing it to the 1 in 14 grade. It's 1 in 14, isn't it? For
Wow.
to be, it was 1 in
12.
12 to be accessible. Yeah, so it just comes down to the surface.
Because it just says universally accessible grade ramp replaced with an accessible grade.
Yeah.
Are those two different measures?
Universally would be anything can go down the ramp, but just
Yeah.
because of the surface.
Just the surface, not the gradient.
Different heights and things like that would be limited. Yeah, yeah.
Alright.
Yeah.
That's exciting. It'll be really great to see the villas coming down for a start. Yeah. Yeah. And have you got any sort of time frame used from your end?
Set out in the report of July, try
then
and get
finish by-
construction started and finish by December year.
Oh. No, that's wonderful. Does anybody else have any questions, comments?
You asked my question.
You guys want to?
Sorry, just him. Fantastic. Thank you so much for coming up. We're really excited to see this. Go at you. Right, we now move to page number 7, which is our minutes of our meeting all the way back in November last year. If I can have somebody move to those children, Tracy, seconded, thank you, Roger, those in favour? Against, carried. And I'll just point out the declarations of interest on page 13, and just a reminder to keep an eye on that and let Sarah know of any updates or changes. Moving into our first report, which is funnily enough, the Alexander Riverside Park project. And this is Christina. And
So Gordon's away today, so technically to everybody, and it's great that this is actually the first report of Q 24, I think, because it's a really exciting project. So I think the trustees here did a really great job of summarizing it, rising everything up, so I think the report is good. And I guess the only sort of other key point that I always like to reiterate whenever I'm doing projects is just to bear in mind the costings that we've got in there. Just bear in mind that it's like a funnel and it's not to the end of the project that you know the true costs. So we've gone from the funnel up here as your concept design, which was publicly consulted on. We're now into the developed design stage, which is QS. As I said into the report, we've got that goodwill as well, which we just talked about then as well, around sort of funding, and also when we head into procurement, that there could be also goodwill from a local company as well, heading into that. So we don't sort of know, you know, those parameters. And then as we get into detail, we'll narrow down the costs. But again, it's not till that final invoice is received and trees are removed and the ground's disturbed, and we all know, you know, that things can change during a project. So I just like to reiterate that. Again, the staged approach, we work together on that and making sure really that our key objectives for the project are being met in stage 1. And and the rough breakdown of the funding applications that will be made and the potential that we might need to shift a few things to that stage 2 if we don't get enough funding. And then from here, as Rory said, the next 6 months will be focused on funding applications and the procurement of construction partner for the plaza and a landscape partner for the river access. And then we'll work with them to then be developing that as the funding and things come through as to how that will shape. So the essence that you do see in Appendix 1 and 2, that's what we're aiming for. And then hopefully, but it will depend on construction companies' availability, that we can get it completed this year.
Right.
So any questions?
Questions from you? I just said one that's not really relevant to this context because it's being pushed out to a second stage, but the perforated steel,
Yeah, sure.
is there going to be any issues with heat in that? Like if you've got kids in bare feet, will there be a problem and it's 32 degrees outside?
Absolutely, we can look into that. Yeah, that's a really good point. And as you said, just to clarify, absolutely what you said before was correct. So they had reduced the size and the slope, but it's then adding that perforated steel. But I guess it's that also that weighing out, we get the surface that is fully accessible, but then that hot factor. Like you get on slides, right?
Yeah, which, I mean, it may well be that a universally accessible is actually not practical in our climate or whatever that be, and then there are alternatives to perforated steel that would still meet the requirements.
Absolutely, and that's a really great thing of going from the architect side of things through to your local contractors and working with them on that final design.
Yeah.
They are used to the climate.
Yeah.
They can give you that sort of real practical advice as well. So we can work that through that as we go through the next stage.
Tracy?
Just with regards, I itemized some of the funding
Yes.
that are going to be applied to. In the event that one or more are not able to do it, you see that there's going to be some changes to the I guess to the plan. It's already had quite a few some alterations. Will there be further alterations, and would it impact, if you had to make further alterations, would it impact anything, what parts would it impact?
Yeah, I guess that's a bit of crystal ball gazing.
Yeah.
And that's something that we've worked through. If it's really fundamental, then I could see that we would need to come back to the board. But what we're saying is an overall, this is where we're going with this project. If there's any major hiccups along the way, then we would come back to the board. But I think working with the local contractors and getting quite creative as well, which we're good at doing down here, I'm sure we'll make this better.
With the gravel path, how will it be impacted by flooding?
That's a good point, and that has been looked at with the architect as well, and that will be considered through the design, the further design of it. But with anything along that side, there's always going to be risk of flooding. But when we come to the contractors and understanding that will be part of that conversation too. So obviously there's only so much we can do. There is always that risk on that area. But I think everyone around the table sees the benefits of this project as a whole. And if that did happen, we would get in there and fix it up.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
That's okay.
Exciting times.
Yeah. So
Cool. Everybody happy to move the recommendations, which are,
16.
thank you. That we receive a report, accept the level of significance, approve the stage development design for the Alexandra River Park project and agree to proceed with the project as per council's procurement policies, subject to funding, and authorises the chief executive to do all that is necessary to get effect to the resolution. Thank you, Jane, moving that. Seconded Martin, all those in favour? Carried. Wonderful.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
Cheers, guys.
Moving to page 52 to talk about our delegations to community boards. Peter, thank you very much. And Wayne. You're not an afterthought, Wayne. You just, your name wasn't on the list. Wayne's there.
Well, kia ora koutou tātai. It's nice to be reconvened for 2024. And this particular topic, we've probably been discussing this for 1 or 2 months ago as a council and as council officers. And the long-term plan process is actually provides us with a good little opportunity to review some of our policies and the likes, which is every 3 years, in some cases every 6 years. But this particular policy, our delegations manual, we do review that regularly, but the community board delegations probably haven't been touched for some time. And you can probably advise me as to when the last time we had a look at the community board delegation. So it's timely in a way that this presents an opportunity for us to have a look and say, okay, are they still relevant? Are they still appropriate? The role of the community boards has not changed, will not change, as enshrined in legislation. And going forward, obviously, community boards play an important role within our community. What this paper proposes is that we are looking at the delegated authorities of the community board and saying, really, are they still appropriate for the environment that we're currently operating in? And the opportunity to put up in the appendix what we think could be the new community board delegated authorities. And really the opportunity now is for us to have a conversation with you. You'll have some questions and some queries, and for us to be able to work through those. Under our own register of delegations, if we want to amend the community board delegation, we obviously have to talk to the community boards. Hence, the start of the conversation. And the intent would be that the community board would provide feedback into what your particular view is on this, either today or by the 11th of February. So we could weave that into a report that will go in front of council in February, where this matter will be considered by council. And at that meeting, I would imagine that the chairs of the community boards would like to be present, and maybe members of the community board themselves would also like to be present. But so this is an ongoing part of the conversation. And we'd be interested in your thoughts. Hopefully that the paper has been read, and you will have some really interesting questions.
So what we might do is questions first, and then we'll do discussion. So has anybody got questions for Peter or Wayne? I have one. Just around the numbers. So we have obviously the many total and CDX 4 elected and 1 appointed, and here we have 3 appointed. Is that tied to the numbers of people that are represented, or it's just the way it is for VCB from one? And that we have 4 elected and then 3 appointed councillors on the board. Does it have to be 3 appointed councillors, or could we say actually all of our community boards are 5?
Well, it's more the representation review would be looking at numbers.
That and potentially at the start of next term, the law says you must have a minimum 4 community board members.
Yeah.
And it also says you can't have more councillors than you have community board members. So, which is why with Vincent, you've got 5 councillors.
Yeah.
And three around the
the community board under that delegation page.
There's no reason that couldn't be looked at to drop back to have less councillors around the board if that was what the board felt and the council felt like, but that isn't part at this stage of that discussion.
No.
I think that could be done at any stage if the board and the council agree.
So when will this take effect?
Sorry.
So when will this take effect?
Well, it would take effect on a result of council resolution. So with the paper going up in the last council meeting in February, if the council was to resolve to amend the community board delegations, then it would affect that resolution. Unless council put some particular time that by a certain date, but we haven't really looked at it. The intention would be once council resolves to make a decision, whatever that decision is, then we would enact that.
So we can probably think of some ideas that are going to be in the positive. Can you think of anything that might be a negative for changing the delegation?
These delegations are pretty well long standing. So I actually think it's probably going to take us a year to get comfortable with the new reality. And so I think that we'll be feeling our way through this for a period of time, because even the council will now be tasked to make decisions that perhaps previously would have been the purview of the community board. So it's a slightly changing landscape, but I think we'll sort of be feeling our way through. The role and the purpose of the community boards has not changed. It's as it is in law today, it will be in law if the council chose to amend the delegations. It's just that decision making will be elevated to council. Community boards would have an input into that decision making. Obviously, if it's relevant for the board, then papers would obviously come to the community board for their thoughts and comments.
So just to follow on from that, with regards to if the recommendation comes from VCB to make those changes, to support those changes, we are one community board. If there's other community boards that have a different opinion, is that going to be on council to make that decision, or is that and is it made as a whole? Or is it one community board with other community boards having different delegations, or would it be across the board?
It would be standardised across the board, and it would be obviously a decision for councillors and April.
Thanks, Tamer. If I can just join in here, because there's parts to the paper that don't perhaps reflect the reality that I'm hoping to put in place as mayor with council approval. And that really, I'll go back a step. I've been mayor for 7.5 years, and I'm a massive believer in the principle of subsidiarity, which is that your best decisions are made by the people closest to where the decision is going to have impact. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we break down as close as we are at the moment, in which the law suggests maybe going too far. I work really hard as mayor to try to get around the district and understand what's happening all around the district. I've got a good grip on Vincent because I live in Clyde. I work a lot of my time in Alexandria. I've got a less of a grip when it comes to Cromwell, and I've got a less of a grip when it comes to the Maniatoto and the Teviot, because I don't live there, which is where I see the boards have such a huge role, because they do live there. And so I'm a massive advocate for the community boards, and amongst the mayors, I think now in the minority that have community boards, and out of the 67 councils in New Zealand, my understanding is that there are only 13, including us, that have community boards for every person in their district. Some have, such as Queenstown up the road, just one community board for Wanaka. So community boards' roles are changing, and that's been a decline over quite a number of years. Where I see the huge advantage coming out of this, and where I want to lead it, is in the line on advocacy on page 55, where it says that you can advocate as part of the long-term annual plan process, policies and services, etc. And there's a catch-all at the end: advocate to council on any other matters that the board resolves to do so. And what I'm wanting to put into place is a structure that will allow that. And if we look at the types of papers that come before a board now, as opposed to what may under the future methodology, you have decisions such as road naming and grants. They would remain as they are now, which is do what you want with inside the budget and with inside council policy. The second ones are ones where you may have decision functions now. So if we look at perhaps the Pines subdivision, that would now become, if you were to take stage 1 and emulate it in stage 2, you would simply come to the council and go, this is what we would like to do with stage 2. This is what we think should happen with stage 2. And the council would, as mayor of the council, and in my own opinion, would take huge notice of what the community board says, but must also put that in the matrix of the rest of the council situation. And particularly with finances, when it comes to we're now in debt and how much more debt we want to incur, because when the board say we want to do this, well, that could incur debt. It must have that district-wide lens over it. So what is an autonomous power now would become a recommendation. But where that advocacy that is there, that part D, really comes into play are those decisions that are currently not, they would be ward-based, but are not within the board's gambit. And I can give a classic example here, and I'll do it with slightly more hesitancy this afternoon in Cromwell. But there was a major disharmony within the Cromwell Community Board in 2017, where this council made a decision in relation to the Cromwell Aerodrome without talking to the community board. There was good lessons in that, because we really should have got the view of the community board first, but we didn't because it wasn't in the community board's lane. What this is doing is everything's now the community board lane, but for things that are specific to the wards, it would be my expectation that with time allowing it, and again, as Peter said, and I think we should be reviewing this a year after if it goes ahead, find the best ways, because we don't want to slow down what is going to be already a cumbersome process. But if it is a board-based decision, that should automatically go to the boards for recommendation beforehand, even if it's something like Three Waters Road and airports, which is currently, well, would remain outside of what's seen as the lane of the board, but actually would come within the overall gambit. And then you have your fourth type, which is decisions that relate to the whole district. And the board would have the opportunity to let the views know on that. And that was the long-term plan. At the moment, previous long-term plans, you've got your bit of the long-term plan, you deal with that and it goes to the council. You'll be there to talk about all of the long-term plans, things that it's taken into account. And the structure that I'd like to see to achieve that is, and it's going to make a great, better, I believe, cohesion between the boards and the council, is at every council meeting, once this comes into play and once it's bedded in, there will be a board report. And that is simply where the board chair will be able to come along to the council meeting or zoom in and say, hey, this is what's happening in my district. And maybe I'll jump to the Minia Toto and say the board chair might come in and say, my people are saying to my members that the broom is getting too long on the side of the road. Now, that doesn't come to this table from the board at the moment because it's not in the board's lane, but everything will become the board's lane. And there will be those opportunities for the board chairs to feed up into council. And I think everyone's going to benefit from that. That would mean that the board chair on a quarterly rotate, because we've got 4 boards and 12 meetings roughly, should work. Would do it every quarter, but if something comes up urgently that the board feed and say, hey, I need to talk, and then we'd hear from 2 boards that day. So I see nothing but positives in this and a real opportunity for the council to hear more from its roots, and its roots are the boards. So I see it anyway.
And I do like that opportunity for feedback to come from more locations feeding through the council on some of those things that matter to people. Anybody else got any other comments, questions?
I think it's going to be interesting, the debate held tomorrow in Cromwell.
This afternoon.
This afternoon, yeah. The effects on Vincent will not be as quite as profound as they will be or perceived to be in Cromwell.
And I think that's where we look at, and Vincent's in the middle, we touch all the other wards, we don't have hard borders.
And I've said it before and I'll say it again, I like to think that it's now we're starting more to think of Cromwell and Alex as being a bit like Geneva, you know, one town separated by a lake. And the more we start thinking along those lines, the better we're going to be off across the whole district. So I'm supporting the recommendations as they stand.
I'm happy to move the recommendations A, B and C. Martin, would you like to second that?
Quite, yes, please.
In terms of a written submission under C, would we like to put one together formally prior to the 11th of February to go from the board in relation to this, or are you comfortable that those recommendations encapsulate the views of the board?
I don't think we need to go to it. I think the recommendations as they stand are strong enough without us having to put a formal response. I think if we were totally against this, then we'd have grounds for a formal response, but seeing support is the table generally supports the recommendation, so I think we don't need to worry about putting up any form.
In that case, moved and seconded, all those in favour? Against? Carried.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Would you like to give your report?
Right, well, I have come with something I prepared earlier, fortunately. Happy New Year to everybody. It's great to see you all back, and it's going to be an interesting one, obviously, but we work our way through it as it comes along. I came back to work on the 3rd of January and immediately got stuck in being a parking meter ambassador. Although I was referred to as a few other things by folks on the street as I wandered out of town putting fork on tyres, and to a lesser extent in Clyde. And then from there handing out little leaflets that said, hey, come on, fair go, really should you be parking here all day? And the reason we did that, I've had quite a number, as have staff, and I'm sure some elected members, of complaints from particularly businesses and retailers saying people are parking on the measured sites, or not the metered, the signposted sites for the all day. And generally it's people, they tell me, from one business parking outside another business all day long and taking up all parts. So we wanted to, with discussions with staff, find out really whether we did have a problem, because anecdotes are not data. So I've wandered the streets a bit, and in that period of time, I've gone around 8 times and I've handed out over 100 little leaflets saying, hey, fair go. And it's been really quite remarkable. Centre Point car park just over here. One day I handed out 9 leaflets. The warehouse car park just over there was almost empty. So almost 5-minute walk, maybe, if you're a slow walker, extra, and those parks would be freed up. Shannon Street, one side of Shannon Street one day was entirely full of parked cars that were there all day long. A block further away was empty, or bar one car. So it really is habits of people that our non-enforcement policy has allowed people to get into some bad habits. Whether little leaflets under the window will change those habits, I don't know. But for me, it's really simple. Businesses need to ask, because you can't really tell your staff where to park, but to ask their staff quite seriously, could you please not park outside other people's businesses? Because I don't want us to go to enforcement, but we'll see whether that needs to happen or not. So we'll be doing it for the remainder of the month, which isn't a lot left of it. The one thing I've been really happy about, though, was that I hadn't yet found anybody apart from the disabled park that didn't have the appropriate signage. So I was really pleased about that. It was about the only bit of it I was, but the other bit I was pleased about was a really positive response to people who have asked me, what are you doing? Or reading the paper, what I am doing, and good on you. And I have had one or two businesses since the email will get in touch with me saying, hey, I think it's making a difference. We're actually able to get people to come in. So we'll see. But it's been an interesting time and something that I never foresaw in my future. In doing that, though, I've seen just how busy the town's been, and it's been fantastic. I think we've had a great summer. I spent Sunday up at Lake Dunstan and couldn't believe the number of jet skis and boats and other things racing around. Really quite remarkable. In Pioneer Park, the playground there one day was just, it looked like a busload of school kids that turned up, but it wasn't. It was just people taking their kids out, their families. It was wonderful. So that's been very good. The other thing of probably relevance to Vincent, I've just been part of discussions to ascertain what, if any, support the new government may be able to give to Frogstand into the future. They're very early discussions, but we'll see where that goes. And that's really been it for me. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Right. Would you like to, I'm going to move that the mayor's report be received, and Joe will second that. Those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We now move to my Chair's report, and just a reminder for your reports, there's no pressure on you to say that you've been to 27 different events. If you've just been to 2 things that were really interesting, that is fine. I'd just like to start off by welcoming everybody back to 2024, and also highlighting how awesome it is that we've had a reasonably safe and happy time across the festive season in our area, because not everybody got that within their council. So, and like Tim said, it's been awesome to see people out enjoying our 32, 33 degree days. Hopefully much people are remembering to slap. That's definitely that time of year. Since our last meeting, a couple of quite cool things have happened. In December, I went to the sod turning ceremony for the Kolo Broadsheet Trail that will be coming from Gippsland through to Cromwell. Thankfully, they've been out and watered the ground prior to the site turning so that Tim could get a shovel in the end of the ground. But it's really exciting to see that get underway, and that'll have, massive implications for our district as well as people head the whole way through Road Gorge and then through Cromwell as well. And then I went to the Roxburgh Fall opening along with Tracy, which was fantastic. It was so exciting for them to finally be underway with such a long-term community project, and really just highlights what communities can do when they're 100% committed to something. Kids were thrilled to have a swim in the pool as some of the first people in there. They complained about it being cold, which I don't think was actually true, but they didn't want to get out. Earlier this month, last week, I attended the Central Otago AMP show. Gives away a scholarship each year to a young person who's from the Central Otago area who is participating in tertiary study in the agricultural sector. And we had 3 outstanding candidates this year. It's just amazing hearing what young people are up to beyond school, and especially in their agriculture sphere, and really exciting that all 3 of the candidates were planning to not only go and see some of the world, but also coming back to Central Otago, and to retain that sort of talent is, I think, really exciting. And then on a personal note, I was very thrilled to maintain this year, once again, my New Year Marshmallow Roasting Champion title at New Year's Eve.
I didn't take a proof that.
I hope you can believe that it be received. Jane, thank you for sending that. All those in favour, or against, carried. And moving on to our members' reports. Roger, would you like to pick us off?
Well, unfortunately, I succumbed to COVID at the end of last year, and hence missed the council dinners, lunch, and got quite a number of other end of year functions. So that was, and for me, it was quite a bad experience having COVID. It was the worst, sickest I've been for a very, very long time. So I don't think anyone should underestimate it and its potential effects. I attended a board meeting. I ran a Creative Writers Circle meeting. Performed for a Christmas carols night at Central Stories. That was rather a longish night, but never mind. I attended a Central Otago District Arts Trust meeting. Attended an Alexandra District Museum meeting. I helped at the community lunch on Christmas Day. It was great. But 70 people came along, and from a lot of people from out of the country, from other countries. So it was a diversity of people there. And I attended a talk by photographer Eric Schuster on his collaborative work with the late Anne-Marie Hope Cross. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. Fine.
Okay, I attended the AGMs of the Alexandra Golf Club and the Alexandra Rugby Football Club, and I'm pleased to report that both these sporting clubs in our community are doing very well membership-wise and also financially. Keeping in touch with Bex and the Balance Cottage Committee. Unfortunately, I haven't been into too many working meetings because I've got a very sore neck, which I've had for a couple of months, but we won't get into that. And just with Tim talking about numbers that you've seen up at the lake, we're at the golf club, we've had December, January record numbers through the course. So the camping grounds have been full and motels, so it's been great for around here. Very good.
Thanks. Brilliant. Thank you. Marty.
Hearings panels reconvened. We've had our first meeting of the year last week. Kylie got some stuff left over from 23. We're going to the final round of deliberations over Plan Change 19 later in February, and we'll be reporting to council in March as planned. I think it calls to email the bosses at Delta to pass on the very many positive comments that I've been receiving about the state of our gardens, and especially Warrnambool. The amount of, just while I'm out and about, the amount of times people come up to me and said that's looking absolutely fantastic. So I passed that on to Richard, who's the boss, to pass that back on to the staff here. Those women have done a fantastic job. They've looking great. And looking forward to the year. There's some exciting things happening.
Thanks, Marty. Jason?
As Tame's already mentioned, we went to the Roxville pool opening, and I think that it should be noted that it was a incredible celebration of the community coming together with a vision. I know it was a long time to get that vision seen, but it really was something special, and it's an incredible building in itself. So yeah, it was really neat to be a part of that. I have I went to the COINC, so Central Otago Health Incorporated meeting at the end of the year. And it's always a bit of a social. We have a meeting and then we have a meal. And I just want to acknowledge the passing of our secretary, Judy Hamilton. It was very unexpected. So that was very, very sad. Yeah, so it was a week after the meeting, so it was a bit unfortunate. So moving on a great note, Bob Turnbull Trust out in Ophir, we had done our annual grants, and it is really amazing to be part of a money giving organisation that can, really support our local communities out here. So that is, that's always a highlight for me of the year. And I've been to multiple AMP show meetings. I actually can't remember how many there's been because of really getting to the pointy end. So I hope everyone is able to come and attend the AMP show on the 10th, Saturday the 10th. That's if you're not doing Spirited Woman.
No, I'm good.
You're not doing it. That's good. And I guess the other thing is I also want to put a shout out to all of the local and wider fire brigade members in our communities, because as we can all see, it is very, very dry out there and they're getting lots of call outs, and it's a big job as a volunteer base. And I think it's really important that we acknowledge the great work that they're doing, try and make sure people keep their cigarettes in their cars and the agricultural equipment and fire extinguisher with them. Other than that, thank you.
Yeah.
Firstly, it's just great to be back here and looking forward to 2024. So I, end of last year, attended the Terraceville Prize giving in year 8 graduation, which is always one of the big highlights of the year. And I popped along to watch the Super Smash cricket. I couldn't believe it's the third. Looked like a really good turnout, and I also get some comments from family that used to live here who were saying it was just amazing getting to see Alexandra on the TV like that. So it's a really positive event. And it's about it from me. It's been a busy holidays and we're a week away, almost survived the school holidays.
Yeah.
Almost. Yeah, I love my kids, but looking forward to school starting again.
Yes. Awesome, thank you. I'm happy to move that those reports be received. Jaden will second that, thank you. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Now move to our status reports on page 59. Is there anything that you also wanted to highlight in those? Does anybody have any questions?
I'll move we take them as read.
Perfect. I've just got one question for you, Sarah. I don't know, I'm just blind. On page 60, the first status report and the second status report appear to be the same thing, and one says the prospector races uplifted the approved grant and the others are still to be uplifted, and then the next one says all grants are now being paid.
So there is a repetition, but it is separated into community and grant, so it shouldn't both be there. But I think the promotions ones is just the top entry.
Yeah.
And the community grants is done. So they're all close.
Okay.
But we'll leave it open as just one entry. In the hope that
Okay.
On to go.
Yeah.
Cool.
I have a question too, if you.
Yeah.
On the Alexandra Cemetery, Barnett Street boundary treatment, just note that the letters were to be sent out by the end of November, which hasn't happened. And it's, is it possible to have when something gets transferred over to another month or to another time in the next year, to put a date on it?
The updated date.
Yeah, so we know that when we look at it, the next time we can say, oh, well, why hasn't that happened? Just the timing, so we know, because the new year could be, how long is the new year?
Yeah. Cool. Yep. Thanks for the feedback.
There's I had a question for that one as well, which was just around the time of how long it's taken.
You have it done.
3.5 years,
Yeah. It's
which seems excessive.
It does. We'll get on to
It's looking good,
Yeah.
but if we could just, yeah. Time that up,
Mhm.
done, that'd be great. I'm not sure, I know there were some challenges along the way, and it is looking really good what's been done, but yeah, it was from well before your time.
Yeah.
And one before mine.
All that times.
Maybe we could just,
These
yeah,
things can.
yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. Does anybody have any other questions on any of those stats reports? No, in that case, can I have someone move? Tracy, thank you, and Di, seconded. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Date of the next meeting is the 7th of February, which is not that far away. Exciting for you guys, we get to see each other again in 2 weeks' time. Yeah. Perfect. And we now move into the public excluded proceedings, which are also going to be quite short. Thank you very much for joining us today, Ruby. Anytime. It's not like you'd rather be outside today. It's yeah, it's awful.